But I mean, I guess we have three programs. Animation, of course, which was our first program, concept art, and sequential arts, which is comics and graphic novels. And each of them does have a digital component,
Yeah.
in fact, very strong digital components.
Yeah.
Um,
Now, if you can't pin it down any more than that, good news is we're about to give you some presentations that will explain what the programs cover.
Yeah.
So that might give you more of a basis for being able to decide like which one actually interests you more in terms of the skills you want. And I usually recommend to people think not just in terms of like what you do professionally, but also what skills you'll be using in those jobs, because I tend to think different artists have different temperaments in terms of the kind of work they naturally want to do all day.
Yeah. And if I could present my screen, like I said, I was getting some picture reference. I can show you all the stuff I could show you. It's all digital. The student work is all digital. If I've got a few minutes for me to do that, just to
yeah, you know what? I'll give it you can do that for a couple of minutes because we were supposed to start. We're supposed to start at 10 after, but let's make it a couple of minutes later just to see if anyone else wanders in.
It'll be very quick.
Okay.
But Rosalinda, if you like working digitally, this is what we're doing in rep painting right now. We're studying basic forms and lighting, and this is student work, and this is all digital. We were working with traditional media like oil up until now, but then we go into color, and then we go into, because this is all leaning towards having you understand form and lighting on planes so that you can render anything you want out of your head and have it look correct. But this is what we're studying in the first term, but this is all digital. And in design comp, all of the work you see here, except this one, that's traditional, but all of the stuff here was digital. These, again, first term, first year design comp classes, but all of the work done here is all digital.
AJ is asking what kind of software might have been used for those pieces.
Clip Art Studio, Photoshop, stuff like that.
So a variety of things.
Yeah, any painting program that you are comfortable with, you can use. I mean, we don't have, you must use this and stuff. No, any digital program that you use and that you're comfortable with, you can use.
I mean, that might vary in different classes, because I know in later courses in sequential, we say we're learning this program, but
if you're in animation, you definitely have to have learn certain programs like Maya and stuff like that.
But you're talking about like in a first year fundamental class where you're just learning the principles of painting.
Yes, it's whatever program works for you.
Yeah, and what you'll find here is so AJ, we actually do start people off on Adobe, at least in the sequential program, which is mine and Kent's. And that's only because in terms of graphics and illustration, Adobe is kind of like the grandpappy of a lot of other programs. So unless you're teaching something really specialized that applies to animation, it is often a good program to start with, just because if you can learn how those controls work, you'll probably find a lot of other programs have similar controls.
Yeah, and I haven't tried it yet, but I know there are other free programs like Krita as a.
Oh yeah, no, I have students who by fourth year have switched to using things like Krita or again Clip Studio or a variety of different things. So again, it depends on what class you're in and what they're trying to teach you, because some classes will say we're using pencil and paper. Some of them will say we're using Photoshop. They'll say we are using Toon Boom or whatever, because if that's necessary for the specific thing that's being taught in that course or even in that week.
Yeah.
But then there'll be other courses where the teacher's like, I don't care, as long as we're using the principles that are important to this course. The software is academic.
Yeah, and Rosalinda, if you like working digitally, we absolutely do it at the school, and it's because if this becomes your career, you will be working digitally. So
yeah, so we do try to get everybody up to speed on the digital, but there are other courses where we go very old school, And sometimes that's because we don't want people leaning on
Oh no.
the
And
technology if they're meant to be able to do something themselves out of their head.
yeah, no, I've been an oil painter all my life. Illustration, they're all in oil. I can do digital just as easily. We want you to have any of those kind of skills. And so there's in the CA, there's in 3rd and 4th year, there's still traditional oil painting for like the figure and clothed figure and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of the philosophy of the school is that, you know, if you understand how the basic principles of art work in a way that's technology agnostic or that is not technology dependent as well, then you can use those principles with any media. You can use them with paint. You can use them with pen and ink. You can use them with a particular piece of software because the principles of how the human eye digests what it sees doesn't change across platforms.
And processes don't change. I mean, when I started working digitally, I know all this. What my students use. Oh, I have it on 50,000 layers and stuff like that. And when I switched to doing digital stuff, I just used the same exact process that you would use when I'm doing oil painting. It worked for me. So
yeah. So anyway, I think that's a pretty good lead into just starting the presentation. What do you think, guys? If anybody else wanders in, they'll pick it up as they go along.
Yep.
So first off, a few things about the school in general. So the school has now been around for 27 years and counting. We just celebrated our 20, what do you call it, quadricentennial? What's a quarter of a century? I don't even know that word.
Sounds good.
I'm going to say it's quadricentennial. We'll pretend it's right. And that was 2 years ago. We're still going. We used to be called Max the Mutt. In recent years, we shortened the brand to MTM College.
yes.
And actually on paper, MTM stands for something different. But those of us who've been in the building a long time still think of it as Max. We still sometimes say Max amongst ourselves. If you catch us doing that and wonder, who is this Max, that you'll know that's what we're doing. It started off, as Kent mentioned, originally as a studio that sort of branched into teaching skills to students in animation that they felt was they were not getting from other schools. That kind of branched out into, you know, a whole program, which then led to 2 other programs. It's sort of being spawned over the years, concept art and sequential art. We're going to get individual presentations very shortly on those programs and what they are all about. But first, let me just share my screen here and I'll just show a little video here. This is us from our humble beginnings at the original building, which I never saw. I was never with the school this far back.
Well, that was apparently the second location because Ed said.
That's right.
Yeah.
This is still only the second location. And moving upwards through 2 other locations after that, including the one we're at right now. Because then we had another building that was on the Danforth for a while. Now we're a little bit north of the Danforth. That's our current building there.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty short video, honestly. But yeah, so let me, without any further ado, because I think we actually covered a lot of the basic philosophy of the school in that sort of informal preamble. So it might as well just get right to the slideshow here.
Yeah, and all the work here is student work.
Yeah, every bit of work you see in this video, in this set of slides, is going to be work that has been done by previous graduates and students of the school. So things that make us distinctive and different. And these are very much wired into the philosophy of the school. By the way, this is a school that was founded by artists. That's one of the things I always think makes us different from the other colleges, is because, you know, most art colleges, they are, well, typically founded by business and administrative people who then go out and hire art teachers. This school was actually founded by artists. And so right from the get-go, there was a thinking that was baked in, which was, what do artists need? What do artists need to know? How do they need it taught to them? and that led to some very critical fundamental underpinnings of the school. So, for example, small class sizes. We don't allow our classes to get bigger than 17 people.
So Linda, Greg Rosalinda has a question about virtual classes.
Oh, yeah. At the moment, it's all present. We did temporarily have license to teach online, and we may be looking at that again. We had that during the pandemic. We're currently we're a physical school.
Yeah, but
so
we are definitely looking at expanding into
yeah,
online class.
And
sure.
Also, just a note, if anyone is interested in trying out the school by taking workshops, some of those are available online. So that's all stuff that you can find through the school's website.
Sorry, we also had a question from AJ regarding tours.
Yeah, I missed that one. Yeah, you can basically, so let me put it this way. If you want an on-site tour, you're much better off booking ahead of time with admissions. And let me just put that contact email in here. Let me just double check here that I'm actually getting it right, because I would hate to screw up the email.
Yeah, and for those in-person tours, you can specify the program you're most interested in, and you'll get a personal tour from a coordinator of that program.
Yeah. And that's much better than showing up impromptu, because you might just show up at a time when everybody's in class teaching and no one has time to show you around, or where the office staff is preoccupied in a meeting or whatever. So it's much better just book ahead of time, and then you can make sure that there's actually someone like there who can walk you around and explain what you're seeing. And it's frankly a better experience than just showing up and wandering around. Also, there is security at the front of the building, so they might have to call up and ask, who is this person? I don't know. Because we have security fobs on the doors, so everyone can feel like nice and secure in this building while they're being taught. So yeah, I'll just put the email there into the chat. That's admissions. So you can contact Azadi at that email anytime to either book a tour. You can also book individual information sessions with the coordinators of any program you're interested in hearing more about, based on what you hear today at this open house. Those are all things that we will happily do for interested parties. So yeah, so like I was saying, class sizes, we like to keep those very small, because we believe that artists learn best through a process of one-on-one instruction, one-on-one feedback. We think of it as a mentorship process. It's not just a show up and watch my incredible slides kind of teaching process, although I do actually use slides, but not just that. And we look for in our instructors, not just both highly qualified and professional instructors. Every time I interview a teacher, it's about how much relevant industry experience do they have, as well as just are they able to teach. We like to let industry lead our curriculum. We're constantly in a process of feedback with other professionals out there around what are we missing, what is changing, because the world of art is constantly changing. Technology changes, industry processes change, demands and trends change. So we try to keep things as relevant and current as possible, as well as trying to be sort of innovative and hands-on in our programming. Like, we put a lot of thought, not just into our individual courses, but how those courses fit together. One of the things I'm always explaining to people when I do an intake is the reason why we don't have electives in our programs. And the reason is because those programs have been carefully organized into a sequence where every course you take builds on previous courses you have taken. So we're not just, throwing teachers in a classroom and saying, I don't know, teach this subject, which I have seen done in some other schools. We actually have like program coordinators who are elevated who are basically teachers who've been elevated to the level of supervising the program, who are very focused on how does the learning process work, and how do you share what knowledge exists in your head with another human being in a way that they can process that and grapple with it and bring that into themselves. And then, of course, as we mentioned before, there's a focus on traditional art skills. which is very much about that thing we said earlier. Like, it's great to know the machinery, it's great to be up on new tech, but there are also certain fundamental skills that don't go away. And without that sort of informed knowledge of how drawings are constructed, how is the figure constructed, how is an environment constructed, technology is not going to save you, regardless of what you may have heard from Silicon Valley lately. But yeah, and also, we're a tight-knit community. So one of the benefits of being both a small school with small class sizes is that everybody kind of knows each other here. It's not a big impersonal campus. The people you take classes with in first year will most likely be the people you keep taking every class with for the 4 years that you're with us. And Kent, you're always saying that your first group is probably your first networking group when you graduate.
Yeah.
And also the place where people discover, quote unquote, their tribe.
Yeah, so it's a very community-based feeling. Your first group is your first networking group, and they'll be with you, as you graduate. We're in touch with many of our grads as well, because we like to be in touch with our alumni. They participate in the life of the school, and in some cases, alumni have even come back to teach. So this is a community, and at its best, it's a family. And I think that's also an atmosphere that's really conducive to being an art student. It's you're not in an auditorium of 300 people. It's hands-on, it's personal, and it's based on what you're doing and what we can see right in front of us.
Yeah, Scott, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just want to add again about the small class sizes and the one-on-one instruction and the highly qualified instructors, is that, again, we've had students from other schools, especially if the classes they're in have 30 plus students. And one of the things they will say to us is that when we have a class size of anywhere from 10 to 14 students, and 14 max and stuff like that, and every student gets attention, gets feedback from the instructors, gets very close attention. We've heard the criticisms of those larger classes is the instructors might focus on maybe the few top students, and a lot of the other students in that class of 30 plus people are they said they've been left to fend for themselves, and that doesn't happen in our classes.
Yeah, and something I want to add to that too is that sometimes people ask, like, what are we looking for in a portfolio? And the overall impression I've gotten from things I've heard through other teachers and at the school and other students that have come to us too, is that a lot of schools are kind of like raising the bar in terms of how good you need to already be at everything before you can even get into the school. Partly because I think they don't have the framework for that, like one-on-one attention. Whereas I will tell students when they're applying to our program, like, I just need to see that you can learn what we have to teach. Because if you don't already, if you aren't already great at drawing the figure or hands or perspective, that's what we're going to teach you. That's what this program is for. As long as the basic underpinnings and the capacity to learn is there.
Yeah. Because our instructors are really qualified. They come from working in their fields. I was an illustrator for like almost 30 years of day in, day out working for magazines and books and book covers and stuff like that. So I'm not qualified to be a teacher based on going to teacher college and getting my teaching degree. I'm qualified because of the skills and knowledge I can pass along to those people. And that is far more valuable than an instructor who might have gone to art college to get their teaching degree and spent all their time there. Yeah. We have spent all our time in the actual field and doing the practical work and getting those practical skills and knowledge that we can pass on.
I agree, Scott. It's the industry experience of the faculty which makes it special, I think. Yeah.
All right, so more or less at this point, I think we'll start talking about the individual programs. So as we mentioned, the school has 3 programs. We have concept art, we have illustration, we have animation. Some people might need concept art explained to them, because I know some people will come in and they're really keen to do stuff they don't even know what concept art is. So we'll get to that. But first, we're going to start by talking about the illustration program. Now, this program actually has a couple of different names, mainly because the real name is super, super long and possibly not the smartest bit of branding I ever contributed to.
Well, it's also, sorry, Greg, it's also where, I'm sorry, but Concept needs to share the word illustration because
that's the other thing. So this is how it sometimes gets tagged in short form, but I know by, when we're marketing. But I agree. I think the program is actually, the proper name for it is Illustration and Storytelling for Sequential Art. And that's because the program is largely built around storytelling with images. So the core of this program was originally like to create a program based on comics and making graphic novels. But its mandate also really includes freelance illustration in general. So freelance illustration for magazines or illustration for, well, everything that needs illustration, really. Illustration is pretty a broad field,
they make their own children's book.
Exactly. We're going to get into that. So the focus in this program is storytelling with images and also how to tell a story with a sequence of images. And hence, there's a big emphasis on comics, but I usually also tell people, if you don't want to do comics, but you do want to do illustration, this program still can work for you because we tend to straddle the sort of border between the two. I also usually like to tell people that comics, at least in North America, has always been a bit of an undersold medium. People tend to assume because comics are really simple to read, they must be really simple to do, when it's really the opposite. There's a ton of work that goes in to make sure that that's digestible for the average person. And that includes combining skills at drawing, skills at composing and layout, and skills at communication. And so at the umbrella of skills there, I usually tell people, if you want to do any kind of illustration, if you can do comics, you can do anything illustration wise. You've done a complete workout of every muscle you could possibly apply to that. And so in the structure of our program, we have sort of tried to leverage that in terms of what kind of stuff you get in your 4 years with us. So things that we focus on, and again, not all of these are exclusive to our program, but they are definitely critical elements of doing a comics page. So constructive drawing of the figure, being able to think about the figure in 3D, not just like a flat, plain Mario version of a figure. The structural drawing of environments and objects, and when you put those two together, that means you can draw a character in a 3D environment, and they don't just look like they're standing in front of a painting of that place. Their feet are planted on the floor. You can turn the whole thing in your drawing. You understand it, and that's critical to being able to storytell and to be able to kind of create a cinematic sense of place and events. And then design and composition, which flows through everything. And I know Scott's very passionate on this subject as our design and comp teacher. And this is both in terms of comics layout and general illustration, because of course, when I tend to tell people, like, a comics page is almost like composition cubed, because you're worried about the composition inside the panels, but also the arrangement of the panels on the page is its own kind of composition, and those two things are constantly working off of each other.
You've got to know composition, absolutely.
You've got to know composition to do a comics page. Otherwise, you can't even talk about what's happening on the page. Exactly. So how do you know if this program is right for you? We're going to ask this question for each program. So I usually say, you don't just, by the way, feel free to interrupt me. I got into a rhythm. We're usually back and forth on this.
No problem. Yeah, I mean, again, the storytelling aspect is very important. I know our students, whether they're obviously if they're working on comics, but if they're working on a more illustrative thing, or if they have a concept they bring to me, I always ask them, what's the story behind it? Because they almost always have a story. They think story, and then, obviously in especially animation, there is a storytelling aspect to it. But our students are set up to work that way, to produce finished work that way. And I just want to say something about the entrepreneurial spirit, because the SA grads are generally freelancers. So if that's something that's also what is it going to be like to work in the industry once you've graduated, you have, you're disciplined, you're a self-starter, you're quite comfortable working alone. The other two programs are much more team-based. So you have to have a kind of a freelancer's entrepreneurial spirit to be in this program. And that's something you should think about.
Yeah, and there are some people who find that idea very agreeable, even if slightly intimidating and terrifying, simply because it provides you the means to basically create your own workplace at home, and also your own focus to what you want to do. So we're about to discuss some of the things that people come out of our program to do. People are always asking, like, what do graduates of your program do? And I'm like, it's so many different things. There's not one answer to it. And of course, the ideal situation is when you've gotten enough different kinds of work, you can start to like coalesce that into a kind of model for like, what is my business model for the type of work I do look like? And it might be not the same as anyone else's. Maybe 30% of your work is this type of work. Maybe 20% is this type of work. Maybe that changes over time. Maybe you find a niche that you really like and you're comfortable with. Everybody is free to sort of build their own model for their working life, which is the thing you don't get if you get dropped into a workplace and you get told, no, this is the work you're doing. So if that kind of thing agrees with you more than it terrifies you, then this might be a good program for you.
And Donna Johnson, who graduated from SA 2 years ago, who is spectacular and highly skilled in everything, she labels herself freelance illustrator / background painter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because those are basically the two areas that she's most keen to be mining. So there's the slide. So yeah, and so already we've got these kind of jumbled into like sort of different buckets of different types of work. There's the type of work you might do in sort of freelance comics work, especially with a lot of the big companies, but with some of the mid-sized ones as well. Usually there's a bit of an assembly line process. So, some people might be a writer, a penciler, an inker, a letterer, or a colorist, or even an editor. And there's lots of different like roles that people can plug themselves into. And Ken, we've had people who have come through the program not knowing what they wanted to do until they had had a taste of everything.
Yeah, exactly. Not only not knowing what they wanted to do, but when they graduated, and this relates back to some things that were said earlier, because we give them a broad range of skills, they graduated and they had skills to do things they had never really intended on, and careers were founded and grew that way because they had abilities beyond sort of the core thing.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to stress here is these all are programs. This program, concept, animation, are viable careers. These are not hobbies or things that you do in your spare time. We're trying to train you to have a working professional career, and here are some of the things that you can do.
Yeah.
And they're transferable, like illustrator, designer, and storyboard artist, background painter also fit into concept. Storyboard artist and background painter also fit into animation.
Yeah, so there are people who switch streams. Sometimes they even do it while they're at the school, or they do it after they graduate. Which is why I usually also say to people, when you're trying to decide which program is right for you, take a good look also at the course lists for the program. Or if you're still unsure after that, do book an info session with a coordinator or more than one program coordinator if you want to hear from them directly about different programs. Because then they'll talk about what you're actually learning in those courses. Because the real difference between our programs is not that you have a stamp on you when you graduate, that now you're this as opposed to this. It's more like each program focuses on the skill sets slightly differently. And there are certain skill sets that get stressed a little bit more heavily in this program versus that program. So that's why it's good to take a slightly deeper dive into what are you going to learn and how does that mesh up with, what you want to do.
Yeah. And we have students that transfer from one program to another after they've had a taste of one and go, oh, I like some of this, but I really like the stuff over here. I connect with that stuff more, and Then we have students switching from essay to concept or concept to animation, back and forth and stuff like that. So
yeah, and the one thing I will say about that though is that that transition can often add an extra year onto your process, because of course, as you didn't get from being in the other one. So do still try to do your research before you pick a program, just because you can save yourself a little bit of like reestablishing. But yeah, so other things that people from this program do, like there's straight up illustration that can go into anything from advertising to marketing, communications, packaging, children's books. And we do have a 2-part course on children's books, which prepares people for not just that, but other types of kid-friendly illustration as well. There is, like it says here, storyboarding and background painting. So there are ways that these skills can be plugged into studio processes that are also part of the other programs, like animation or gaming or various types of entertainment. And then the thing that's really worth mentioning about this program is original graphic novels. So we get a lot of applicants who are really interested in this part. In your 4th year, you get to work on a graphic novel of your own. And a lot of this was based on us just observing over the years that when we were only a 3-year program, a lot of our students already had little projects running in their sketchbooks that they just never had time to work on because they were busy in school. So it kind of made sense to give them an outlet for that in school so they can get some mentorship on it. So, and I'm actually the teacher for those courses. And what I basically do is just sort of mentor people in developing their story idea, and also mentor them on developing a process for how they, make pages and how they structure their process. I usually tell people you will not finish your graphic novel before you graduate, because that's a big undertaking for anybody, even if they aren't in school. But what you will get is a decent chunk of it done, and hopefully have enough of an idea of how your process works that you will be able to continue beyond graduating at that point without anyone needing to hold your hand. But that's basically how that all works, and that's a big chunk of the 4th year in this program. Whoops. So here's some former graduates, and Kent, you've worked with these students more than I, so yeah. I'm going to let you comment.
So Paris Elaine is a graduate, obviously, and Paris is an interesting one because he was a person who didn't really intend to go where his career has taken him, but he discovered in the course of his time at the school that he had a real skill with color and traditional comic book coloring. And he has many other skills. He's a well-rounded artist, but he got work as a colorist, and he has made a very good career for himself as a colorist. Not what he intended, but he was open to new things, and his career has worked out very well. Michelle Asarasakorn, and that's interesting too, because this speaks to Scott's point about the transferable skills and how the programs sort of meld into each other. Michelle was a concept artist. But she had very, very high skills, and she has, as you see, has garnered an Eisner Award nomination, and has worked with Marvel and DC Comics. And I suspect she wasn't planning to be a comic book artist when she graduated, but she had opportunities. She had the skills to take advantage of them, and she's done very well that way. And finally, Selena Goulding, an outstanding early grad in our school. Very much a comic book person. So you could say that Michelle would be more of the concept illustrative person, but Selena would be a very comic book oriented person. And she's had a graphic novel published by Random House. So, and I think if we were to multiply these 3 students by 2 more or 3 more, you'd see, as Greg said, many avenues that our students can take.
Yeah, and actually, just one thing I want to add about Paris, because he actually is someone I interacted with a few years back, because we were lucky enough to have him come back and teach coloring for us for a few years before he got busy again, because he is in so much demand. And but one thing that I remember him saying, either to me or a room full of people, is that what he felt he had gotten out of the fundamental stuff, because like Scott, you were just showing us those very simple principles of painting earlier. And Paris said, I never became a painter as a result of that, but the stuff I learned through those painting classes really does inform his color choices when he's coloring.
No, the stuff you just saw, we did not do that back then. This
Oh, I
is-
know it wasn't specifically that, but he was still getting rep painting.
Yeah.
You know, there were some similar principles he was getting. You know, he was getting the experience of working with paint and light.
Yeah, no, I've wanted to change rep painting for a long.
Oh, I know. Now we're getting into the weeds here because
Yeah.
you know you get us in a room of educators. Eventually, we'll start picking apart, you know, every aspect of how we're teaching everything, and so let's recobble this again. And that's because we're passionate. And we'll even have spirited arguments about no, we're not going to teach it that way because, you know, and that's because we all really care about the learning process. And you know what are the things people most need to learn from us, and what is the best way to teach it.
Yeah.
So that basically, I think, covers our program. Unless there's anything we've missed, Kent. Should we
No,
pass-
I think we've done well, and I'm anxious to hear what Scott and Steve have to say.
Oh,
and
one last slide. Some
Yeah.
places where our graduates have worked. This is not a complete list.
no, not by any means. And in fact, this is very comics oriented, obviously.
Mhm.
But our grads have you know, worked as storyboard artists for animation, background painters, focused on illustration. We could multiply this by many factors.
Yeah, and since in the last 3 or 4 years, we've now had design elements in the latter years of the program too. So I'm assuming we're going to start hearing feedback over the next decade, you know, of other interesting places that our students ended up.
Yeah.
That they didn't before. Oh, and here we just have some examples of work by some previous graduates.
Yeah, this is Rob Hickey. Wonderful sequential pieces to open up this Rob's page here. But also you can see from the illustration on the right, Rob had phenomenal skills as an illustrator as well.
Mm-hmm. This is Bexy, who of course we were lucky to come back and teach some courses for us in the last year.
Yeah, those two on the right are done in pencil crayon.
I know, and I was very astounded by Bexy's pencil crayon work when I first saw it, because I was teaching her character design, and we were, you know, I was telling them, keep the coloring really minimal. I want you guys to focus on your line work and your shapes. I don't want you to get caught up in doing painty stuff. And Bexy said, can I color mine with pencil crayon? I envisioned some big laborious process that would result in it not looking great, because sometimes when people work with pencil crayon, it does not look like this. But Bexy is quite the virtuoso with it. And when she handed it in, I was like, you know what? I take back everything I said. Go nuts. Keep going with that.
Oh yeah, I had that class for color theory, and one day they came back and all she had was a coffee, and she made watercolors with her coffees.
Oh my goodness.
Bexy's quite innovative with materials. And this is, of course, is Carol, another one of our really strong students.
Yeah, very fast, very decisive, very versatile.
Yeah.
Phenomenally professional in her work. Just an outstanding student.
Yeah, exactly. And now this is where we basically pass the torch to Scott. And you can talk a little bit about concept art. And do you want to start by explaining what it is to those who don't know?
It's visual development. It's concept art has been around for ages. In movies, King Kong, you know, back in the 30s, anything that they were making little drawings to figure out how their shot was going to look, and maybe a painting for what the environment might look like. That was concept art, and that's been around for like a century. And now it's being used. That term is mostly referred to visual development and creating the worlds and environments and props and objects and characters and creatures and things for video games. But it also, if you are a concept artist, you can work in animation, because they will have their development stage of a production where they will figure out the rooms and the exteriors and things like that. And rather than an animator doing that, they will have a concept artist design the look of a street, the look of a city, and stuff like that. And I mean, the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, if you've watched that, beautiful animated film, but all of the preliminary work for the school, for the rooms and things like that, were all done by concept artists. And they are illustrators. I don't really like the term because it's kind of nebulous, but you are an illustrator. If you are a good illustrator who can draw and paint, you can be a concept artist. Because
Scott, one of the ways I sometimes differentiate our programs when I'm giving a tour is I'll say to people, concept art is all about the nouns. It's all people, places, and things. Does that sound right to you?
well, I mean, it is visual storytelling, though. A lot of it is visual storytelling in terms of setting moods and setting. Last year I taught, again, my history isn't concept art, it's illustration. Alan Howell, who's the coordinator, his background is in concept art. But last year, because Bartol was away that second semester, I stepped in to do the props and objects. And one of the assignments was to create an object that elicited a kind of mood or psychological response in the viewer. And that would come down to your shape choices, your color choices, and things like spiky, jagged shapes are going to elicit an emotional response different than smooth, round shapes and things like that, and color choices for that. And that goes to storytelling. You create a character with that kind of shape design, you are saying something beyond just the technical aspect or the aesthetic look of that character. You are getting across psychological responses you're trying to get out of your audience. And that goes into all concept art. It goes into the color choices for environments, creating the mood, creating the look of creatures, and the settings for a throne room. Is it nice and bright and colorful, or is it dark and dingy and mysterious and dangerous? It isn't just the technical stuff. All of that is storytelling too. So yeah. We are absolute storytellers, and
it's storytelling through what things look like, right? It's a very visceral kind of storytelling.
Yeah, it's not sequential, but it's just as much getting things across to the viewer on a story level. Maybe not the sequence that a story does, but what a character might be like as a person, as a character. You can describe that in the shape and the color of that character. And so we do a lot of that. And fourth year, their entire fourth year is spent on they create a world, and then all of their work for that fourth year is to design the environments, the characters, the creatures, the props that all are consistent with the world that they're creating, whether it's like a jungle environment, desert environment, snowbound environment, all of those things that they're making, they want to be consistent. Because when you get assigned to do the concept art for a project, that's what the art director, that's what the producer, things like that, that's what they're looking for. That consistency for the environment that they want you to create all those elements for. And so that's what we focus on, the learning. But to get you there, we focus on drawing and painting and understanding lighting and understanding composition and understanding when you actually do some of that stuff in your later years, it'll get into 3D modeling, and it'll get into photo manipulation for creating environments very quickly rather than drawing and painting them. It's photo batching, stuff like that. We teach you all of those skills that will help you be a very competent concept artist, but also a very competent illustrator. So
there we go. Anything you want to say on this slide, Scott, that you don't think you already covered?
Yeah, the high level of traditional representational art, that's it right there. Like I said, if you are a good illustrator, you will make a good concept artist, because it's just those skills are transferable. It's just, if you're highly skilled, like I'll keep saying, like a broken record, if you're highly skilled, you can do anything anyone throws at you from any field, whether it's animation, illustration, comics, things like that. You might not be able to tell the story the way a comic book artist might, or animation, but in terms of the level of imagery that you can produce, just as highly skilled as anybody.
There we go.
And yeah, we work on, like I said, visual storytelling and layout, which is what comics are. They are layout. They are storytelling through sequential images. They're different than layout for film and television because they'll have different requirements. Comics tell a story through those characters. Layout is showing the camera placements and the character placements and the movement and the movement a camera might make and things like that. Film language, yeah, you absolutely, if you're going to be doing this, it's something I want to add even more of understanding film language in terms of basic film theory, power dynamics, things like that. We don't get into that enough. I'd like even more of that. But layout for animation and storyboard, very, very similar skills, and we cover that. And then the 3D modeling, texturing, asset development, matte painting, that's all the digital stuff that will come in the later years. But that's a media for creating your images. But we get you to create good, strong images first before you do that technical coding and stuff. So. Yeah, and if you're in animation and you want to make your characters move, and those are the kind of stories you want to tell, animation's the program for you. If you love comics and that's the expression you want to do of telling your stories through those sequential images, essay is the program for you. If you like making individual images, beautiful paintings, whether they're with characters and creatures or environments, if that's something that you love, if you've grown up like drawing and painting and you love making that single image, that painting, concept art might be the program for you because we have more of that than the other programs.
And would you say that this line about creating worlds is kind of key?
Oh, absolutely key, yeah.
Because you're basically creating the texture and vibe and feel of like the world that the story inhabits.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of the stuff that gets developed will be like over the years, if you see concept art for video games, it'll be first-person shooter video games with the environments and maybe creatures, a boss creature and stuff like that. But I mean, visual development for stories is anything and everything that can be dreamt up. Last year, there was a video game out of Montreal called Seasons. And the concept is a woman on a bike riding through these environments and meeting characters, but it is stunningly beautiful. And the concept art for that is gorgeous. It's not giant hulking guys in mech suits or giant robots with laser guns, but its concept art was done for this beautiful video game that doesn't look like other video games. So you can dream up anything, any kind of world that you can dream up. You can create all of the stuff in that world, and that's what visual development, concept art. That's what this specialty is. But if you're an illustrator, you can do it. So.
Okay. And this is teamwork, right?
Oh, yeah.
You're being prepared to be able to work as part of a team or a studio.
Yeah, well, because the production will have a team. It'll have a team of concept artists. It'll have a team of riggers for animated characters and stuff like that. But yeah, and certain artists might be a little bit more skilled in certain areas. Maybe somebody knows lighting a little bit better than somebody else, and they might get some of the more like really dramatic lighting situations, but that other person might be really good at characters and creatures and stuff like that. So on a production, those people with even more precise skills, they might get certain areas to do the concept work for and stuff like that. But you also are going to be going through perspective with Kent, and as a concept artist, you absolutely need to know perspective as well, because you will be creating those environments, those cityscapes, those landscapes, and also those interiors. And you want to make those sound in their structure and in their perspective. And you'll be learning perspective for that here too. So.
Okay, cool. Next slide.
Yeah, and again, these are just some of the jobs that are available for someone from the concept program. Contest artist, environment designer, background painter, layout artist, game artist, yeah, character prop designer, absolutely, creature designer, map painter. Yeah, all of these are positions that our graduates are qualified for. We make sure of that.
So Scott, it looks like AJ is asking about 3D software.
Oh, that's not, like, again, I'm not a concept artist, so that's not my particular expertise in the 3D software. We don't use that so much in foundational year or even in second year. That's more in the third and fourth year for 3D modeling and things like that. So I'm not exactly sure what the software is for that.
Yeah,
It is
I think
Maya. It's the industry standard. We use it in
Yeah,
animation.
okay.
we have again.
Guys, didn't we ever at one point teach ZBrush, or is that gone by the wayside?
No, that too.
Okay.
I don't know if we used it in animation.
No, but we're talking about concept right now.
Yeah,
I think
ZBrush,
I'm pretty sure a few years back, even as an outsider, I was hearing the word
Yeah.
ZBrush.
Yeah,
But
no,
Maya
ZBrush
is the
definitely
program that's used in
a
animation
concept.
Yeah.
But that, again, we have people from the industry who are, highly skilled in those areas, and they'll be the ones who are going to be, showing you which software to get to be using for their classes and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that, like everything else, the software is going to evolve over time. I mean,
Yeah,
you don't know.
Alan,
Next year, someone might launch a brand new thing that suddenly becomes all the rage, right?
yeah, and AJ, I'm sorry Alan's not here. If Alan was here, he could give you a much more definite answer.
Yeah. But again, this is one of those things where if you want to dive deeper into anything that comes up in this open house, please do feel free to reach out to admissions and book an info session, and that's where you can follow up with additional questions like that. Anything else you want to cover with this slide, Scott, or should I move on?
You can go to the next. Yeah, and these are some of our graduates. Zabby, outstanding. Zabby and Denzel were both in the same class, and that was a really skilled group of students that year. And Zabby got hired by Ubisoft in his third year. They tapped him on the shoulder and go, yeah, we really want you. And so in his fourth year, he was already working there while he was finishing up his fourth year at school, but they held a position. They saw his work in third year and they held a position for him. So when he got to his fourth year, he could start working there. And now he's moved on to, he's the art director at another studio. I don't exactly remember the name of the studio, but he's art director at another game studio as well right now. And Denzel, another, again, really, really highly skilled student who has been working in concept since he graduated. And Sergi's was, again, really good too. Worked at Ubisoft. And I think he came back to teach last year for a year as well. But again, we had another instructor, Robin Lau, who she was in my first year of teaching back in 2008. They graduated in 2012. A group of them went out to BC, and she started working out there. She's working for Riot now. She's working for a number of companies out there. Yeah, Robin's been steadily employed as a concept artist since they moved out there like 10 years ago. So 10 years straight of working in her field. And again, those are some of the studios that have employed our graduates because of how skilled they are. And again, they see the work our students produce and they go, yeah, we can definitely use those people. And that's some of Sergi's work. And these were done at, as a student at the school. And like I was saying, that one on the left, that was for 3D modeling. And I'm sorry, AJ, I don't know the software program, but the instructors definitely would. So. And just more previous student work. And again, these are the kinds of environments that get done. And these are single images, they are paintings, these are digital. But we go through how to make these strong images. We go into shape design. We cover, all those kinds of aspects of composition that are going to make whatever that particular piece is, whatever the subject matter is, we give you the knowledge and skill to make that a good, solid image. Because your subject matter changes from image to image, but the principles for strong design and strong composition don't. They are always underneath whatever your top surface subject matter is. And yeah, Angela, oh man, her stuff was really beautiful. And just some of the character design work that goes on in the course and environment work and things like that. So if you're interested in imagery like these of, single images, paintings, environments, and if you love designing worlds, if you love designing characters and creatures and things like that for a world you're populating on your own, concept art might be the program for you.
All right.
Okay.
That was nicely timed as a sort of handing of the torch to Steve. So Steve, tell us about animation.
Animation. Well,
I've never heard of it.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear the conversation about some transferable skills. And I was thinking, with my experience, I worked in the animation department at Disney Toronto years ago. But then listening to Scott, I was thinking, well, I guess the last job I had, I could be classified as a concept artist because I was doing character design for an Elmena and Nine story. So it's interesting how in our programs there is these transferable skills.
There are definitely crossovers, despite the fact we have this stuff compartmentalized into silos for the purpose of teaching.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean the walls of those silos are as non-permeable as that might imply.
Yeah, it's interesting. But of course, with animation, I mean, the big thing is, yes, of course, there's design, and there's, you're doing the design of your character, you're composing your scenes. There's going to be a storyboard of the story, of the layout. Scott mentioned layout as well. But the big difference, of course, is motion and movement, and to a certain degree of acting. So, I would say what makes it different. One of the things that's already been touched on is the amount that we place on at our school on traditional skills and transferring those skills into into the industries. And now, of course, animation. It's one of the more strongly focused programs in terms of technology, because that's the industry demand. The industry standard is Maya for 3D animation and Toon Boom Harmony for 2D digital. So our students learn both of those. So it's a balance between traditional skills and transferring those into digital. So the things that you'll learn, obviously, aside from the animation class itself, the things that have been touched on already: cartooning, character design, background painting, color theory, acting for animation. And acting for animation and character design are closely linked. I teach a course called Drawing for Animation, which is largely based on character acting, because that's one of the things with animation. We want to make sure that our characters emote to the viewer. Everything has to read very clearly, the intention, the acting. So that's definitely something we focus on a lot in animation as well, is acting and intent. Go to the next one.
Oh yeah, and I've got.
We can circle back to the films because
We can circle back at the end because I've got those queued up, or at least I've got a couple of different ones queued up. Oh wait, where's it? There we go.
So one of the things, is it right for you? Well, for sure, animation is, like all the programs are demanding in their own ways. Like I said, there's a large technology component in animation, so you want to make sure that you've got the dedication level. You have to kind of love what you do. You can't be blasé about it. You have to really be invested emotionally. Things like, of course, drawing, storytelling is important. wanting your characters to be alive, though. That's really a separation between, say, a still image and an animated image, is that motion, the movement. Um, yeah.
And Steve, I've heard various people, I think maybe even including you, say that animators are artists, are basically actors, but who act through their drawings instead of their own body.
Yes, yeah, they say animators are actors with the saying used to be actors with pencils, but now I guess it's actors with stylus, you know. Yes. Yeah, because of course 2D animation is something that's kind of the past, right? So careers for graduates, obviously there's things like the animator, but there's all kinds of things that you learn within the technology. So even here we can see 3D modeling, texture, or rigging artist. These are all elements that rigging is like the skeleton of the character. It's like the puppet, because a 2D digital characters are essentially puppets. Things like storyboard artist, background painter, compositor. So there's a wide range of possibilities.
Steve, correct me if I'm wrong. Are we still the only program in Canada that's teaching both 2D and 3D at the same time, or has that changed?
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I won't. Okay. I won't. Let's not. Let's don't quote us on that.
Yes. Yep.
I know it was true 5 years ago, but things can change.
But there's a lot of content, you know, like with all the programs, there's lots of content to cover. With the focus on the traditional drawing skills, which is so important. You know, someone can produce a bad digital image, a bad character, you know, 3D model that doesn't read well to the viewer. So we want to try to instill in you the skills to be able to design well and to make your characters read well to your viewer. And whether you do that with a pencil or whether you do it with a Wacom tablet, it's interchangeable. And let's take a look at the next. So some of our graduates of the past, again, all really strong guys. I mean, it's funny, Aaron Long, he was not, he went on to become a director of a TV show. Now, he wasn't the strongest representational artist in terms of drawing, but he was very good at cartooning and acting. So that it was interesting how he used that, you know, in the industry. Josh Hill, he was actually doing work while he was in third year animation. So it was like, I think what Scott was saying about Zabi. He was actually working, I believe it was third or fourth year, but he was working at Netflix on a TV show at the same time he was a student.
Because his 2D was so strong.
Yeah, it was crazy. He was very much in demand. And since he graduated, he's actually been a supervisor, an animation supervisor. That's the position he holds since grad. Kyle Harrison, he actually came back to work for us, I think it was 2 years ago. He did a year with us. Very strong artist and was working at Portfolio Entertainment. Let's go to the next.
Oh, sorry.
So it's interesting, if you look at some of these names, you've seen some of these in the other presentations. You know, Nelvana, Yowza, Guru, Pipeline, these were all, you know, some of these were in the concept presentation. And again, and I think possibly in the essay. I don't know if you guys had Nelvana.
All three. Yep.
All three, yep. Yeah, because a lot of this, you know, there's a certain amount of skill transference. But these are studios that some of our grads have gone to. Some are local, some are international.
And this is just a closing slide. So yeah, so that gives you guys, folks, at least a bit of an overview of what each of our programs are about. And oh, that's right, we had some animations we were going to circle back to. Hang on a second. Let me just see if the slide links are working here. Oh, hang on, you're not getting the sound, are you? I gotta change up my presentation mode. Give me a second.
I see we have someone who's come in a little later. CMK, ZMK.
Hi, yeah, I'm here. How are you?
Good.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, now I got that working. So these are just a few examples of work by past students. And Steve, do you want to say anything to set this up here? Is this a third year?
This is a third year film, and the third year films are done 2D digital, so this is done in Toon Boom Harmony. And the fourth year film that we're going to see is a group film. The third year film is an individual. Each student makes their own individual short film. The fourth year film in 3D animation is a group project.
Okay, so first we're going to look at the individual in third year. All right, and now here's Battleversary, which it was a fourth year project done by a team of students. I hate cutting that short, but I can already see someone has a question. By the way, I just want to mention that one reason I always get a kick out of rewatching that again is because I know that the voice of the Pixie is actually one of our former sequential students, which is Lizzie Carey.
Yep.
Which I think is a great example of the small community at our school and how like people might be in different programs, but it's really just a collection of like-minded people who all want to make fun stuff.
Mhm.
And I can see we have a question. Sorry, who's raised their hand? It was there a second ago, and now it went away.
Z?
I think it might have been. Someone had their hand up and then they put it down, so I don't know now who it was. Feel free to press the hand button at the bottom of your screen if you have a question. So this is actually more or less the part where we would open the floor to questions and answers. I know we already had a little bit of informal Q&A happening throughout the beginning, but feel free to pepper us with follow-up questions because that's what we're here for. Does anybody here feel like they now have slightly more idea which program they might be interested in than before they showed up for this open house? Did any of that crystallize anything for anybody? Or does anybody feel more confused than ever? In which case, feel free to ask questions. Well, I should mention we are going to have a free workshop at this link at 1 p.m. that Kent is going to be teaching on what did we title that? Is that comic book layout?
Comic book layout. Yeah, we're going
Comic
to
book
be
layout.
how to do a page.
So
Oh, sorry.
whether you're interested in doing comics or not, it's always a fun workshop. And like we were saying before, a lot of the principles between these separate streams do cross over into each other. So I tend to find even people who are animation or concept focused usually enjoy and basically anything Kent teaches.
Well, anything, let's put it this way, anything that has to do with art.
There we go. Artists are always hungry for more art.
More art, yes. Yeah.
So yeah, so unless anybody has a burning question, in which case feel free to hit us with them. The alternative is at this point I more or less turn the floor over to lunch, so that anyone who wants to go grab one can do so. We will be using the exact same Meet link for the workshop, so whether you log out or just turn off your camera and mic and come back, either way. If you come back here at 1, that will be going on.
Could I just check in?
Yes, please.
The latest arrival is it Z or Z? NK?
It's Zenub. It's Zenub, but I wrote Z because it's easier for people to pronounce.
See, as Canadians, we have to ask if it's Z or
Yeah,
Z.
I know.
Yeah.
No, I really, really loved your videos, all of them that were made by the kids. Actually, I've been an assistant professor in another country, and I was looking at the options of going into animation because yes, it is the way forward. And yes, I am a little older. I'm not exactly student material, but I would love to see this program and see it unfold. I know that it's a year long. If we're older, you've got some outreach program that I signed up for.
We have workshops. So it's to clarify when we talk about workshops at our school, what we really mean are self-contained courses that are not part of a larger program.
All right.
So for people who want something a little more bite-sized than 4 years, or sometimes people who want a taste before signing up for a program, or sometimes we even get students that are applying to other programs and they want to sharpen their portfolios, and we do all of the above through the workshops.
Got it. So this will start again at 1 o'clock, you're saying?
Yes, it will. Although I just remembered, literally while you were talking, I had another piece of the presentation I almost forgot. So
all right.
While you were talking, I went, what's this other tab I have open? Oh my God, I forgot the virtual tour. So let me just quickly show that because we do have a little virtual tour video of the school's current residence in space. Um,
There we go.
here.
Yeah, and all that work on the wall is graduate students.
Yeah. I don't think I'm playing the schmaltzy music, but do you guys really care?
There's
Nope.
not at all.
This is a few different of our current students working on different things in different classrooms.
Yeah, that was concept. That was them designing an object that would fit in that classic Viking period and stuff like that. So, and that was another concept artist. That was Joy.
Mm,
Carol from SA.
all right. That's from the motion comic. This is, of course, Donna, which we get a lot of use out of this image on
Yeah.
our website because it's just so nice. I remember when she was working on that in her very last term as a portfolio piece. I don't know if she knew how much we were going to be rocking that at the time.
She should have asked for royalties.
But yeah, so that gives you at least a glimpse. And again, for anyone who wants to actually see the building in person, if you are local or planning to be in town, just reach out to admissions and see about booking a tour. We'll figure out, between you and Nizade, you'll be able to figure out a time to do that. And the same goes for info sessions too. If anyone wants to follow up for this general info session, maybe you think of questions after today is over that you're like, oh gosh darn it, you can either email that question to admissions, or if you've got a whole barrage of questions, or you just like to sit down with the coordinators for any of these programs or more than one of these programs, just reach out to admissions at maxthemutt.com. See, we've still got that built into our emails. Did you notice? We haven't switched the emails over to MTM, so it is Max the Mutt. And yeah, so just reach out to admissions at that email that I posted in the chat, and Azadi can set you up for any of the above. Yeah, so I don't know. Anybody else have any questions that are occurring to them just in the last 2 minutes? Again, if you think of them later, see what I just said. But anything at all? Comments? Jokes and riddles. Okay, well, then I think we might as well let the people who are coming to the workshop grab some lunch. And again, I do encourage anybody who wants to get, even if the subject of the workshop in particular is not your specific area of interest, it's a great opportunity to just get a taste of how we teach. Oh, where do we send our portfolio? There we go, AJ. So you could also send that to admissions. Oh, terrific. Well, so again, just keep this link open or come back to it at 1, because it'll be the exact same meet link for the workshop. So all you got to do is show up. But with regard to the first question about portfolios, yeah, and actually what I will say about portfolio is if you look at our website under applications, you will find a laundry list of what we're looking for in a portfolio. We do ask that each of those items be in the portfolio because that's part of how the portfolio will be graded. If there's anything missing, we'll usually ask you to please go do that and resubmit. So do take a look at that list. If you have any questions about anything on the list, again, you can email admissions and ask follow-up questions. And that'll also tell you what else that we need, because we usually have a few other bits of documentation that have to go with a submission as well. And yeah, you can just get that whole process going. Again, your go-to email for all of this is admissions@maxthemutt.com. So everything related to the process of either applying to the programs or just wanting to find out more about them, just go through that email.
So if there's no more questions, I was going to suggest, Greg, that we start the workshop at 12:30. That's an hour. I mean, it's okay with those who want to attend. Also for those who want to attend, it's a working workshop, so we're going to draw. So you should have a pencil, erasers, some, A4, 8.5 by 11 paper, And we're going to, you know, obviously not do a full-size page, but we'll have a script to work from, and we're going to get you to do a page. And I think that should be fun.
There we go. So yeah, so one thing I will mention, Ken, if you do start the workshop half an hour early, be prepared. There may be some people that didn't come for the morning.
Oh, that's
show up at
okay.
1.
Yeah, so maybe we can just keep it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because sometimes that happens. So my suggestion would be just give people an extra half hour for lunch.
More time for my lunch too.
There we go.
Perfect.
So basically we'll see those people back here at 1 for more of Kent. From the rest of us, thank you very much for coming. I hope you found it informative and hopefully even maybe a little bit fun. And you know, feel free when you're in the workshop, you'll have an opportunity to see how we approach teaching. I mean, all of our teachers are a little different, so you'll be seeing Kent's spin on it, but I also think you'll probably get a bit of a glimpse of the philosophy of the school.
And there are videos up of us instructors giving some workshops.
Feel free to check out the school's YouTube channel, because our media person has been like posting videos, including a few master classes that various teachers and former grads have been tapped to teach. So those videos are all available on the school's YouTube channel.
Give you an idea of what we cover and stuff. So.
Which I should find and put a link to that in here. I just have to. I think I know what our YouTube handle is. Should I know that? There we are. Whoops. I'll just throw that in the meet just so it's there. Oh, we got. Oh no, that's a question for. Oh, this is AJ asking a question. So, do we offer hybrid courses? At the moment, we're not set up to offer that. Again, you know, keep your eye out for the future, because we are in the process of sort of like resubmitting some different things to the ministry, but that takes time. So at the moment, we're basically just an in-person school. But again, I should amend that by saying that applies to our programs. It does not necessarily apply to our workshops. We actually do workshops, those sort of standalone courses, that some of those are operating in either online or hybrid mode. Yeah. So to find out which is which, I mean, the simplest thing you can do is contact. Let me just put that email here. Work. I really should learn to type one of these days. Not part of my skill set, not a thing I keep. Let me just double check that email, because some of our newer emails might have a different tag on the end of them. No, that is the correct one. Okay, good. So this is the email that you can contact if you're interested in finding out more about our workshops. Again, they're usually posted on our website as well. But if you want to go cut straight to the source and say, what workshops do you have on this, or are you planning to offer workshops on this, you can just email that, and someone should get back to you there. So yeah, so there's a few different things you can look at with us depending on what you're actually looking for, whether you're looking for, you know, a full-on program, or whether you're looking for, you know, a workshop, or both. Cool. All right. Well, thanks very much for coming. I'm glad everybody seemed to enjoy everything that we covered here this morning. And again, by all means, do feel free to come back at 1 p.m. for Kent.
Yep. Look forward to seeing you. Thank you, Greg.
Thanks
you
very much,
Steve. And looking forward to the workshop.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Have a good day.